Now at 11, Catholics across the world and locally mourn and remember Pope Francis as the pontiff is laid to rest.
Those are words he used all the time, how we needed to reach out to the poor.
Plus, concerns raised after a recent program meant to help people file their taxes may already be ending.
Being easy to do and being free aren't things that you normally associate with taxes.
And how the community came together to make a home livable once again for a local woman.
That's why I call this a perfect storm of blessings.
Thanks so much for joining us here at 11. I'm John Adams. Today, the world said goodbye to Pope Francis in a funeral mass in the Vatican St. Peter's Square that was crowded with the faithful. Heads of state from around the world, including President Trump and former President Biden, were in attendance. The pontiff was then carried to his final resting place, the Basilica of St. Mary Major, outside of Vatican City. NBC's Alice Barr has more from Rome.
Good evening. It was a beautiful day to say goodbye here in Rome to Pope Francis as hundreds of thousands crowded into St. Peter's Square behind me and along the route of a remarkable procession through the streets of Rome, passing landmarks like the Colosseum in this city where the ancient and the modern mix. Fitting for a pope who sought to move the rites and traditions of the Catholic Church into the modern world to make the faith more accessible to people. Remembered throughout his funeral for his outreach to the poor and disenfranchised and his vision for a church capable of bending down to every person that engaged so many around the world.
His love for the poor was really beautiful, and his just immense humility as a pope.
The compassion, the peace, love, and joy that he gave to everyone in the world was just amazing.
He was also a pope who engaged in global society and to the end pushed for peace, especially in Ukraine, likely inspiring this surprising moment today when President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky sat down together inside St. Peter's Basilica for brief talks on ending Russia's war on Ukraine. Never afraid to break tradition, Pope Francis did so again today, with that procession leading to his final resting place outside the Vatican walls for the first time in more than a century. The Pope's chosen resting place, the Basilica of St. Mary Major, where he so often came to pray, and where the cardinals are set to pray tomorrow over the simple marker he selected as they prepare to decide on his successor in their upcoming conclave. At the Vatican, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Local Catholics mourning Pope Francis say his warm demeanor and openness made them feel close to him. And Bishop Peter Smith of the Portland Archdiocese says that's exactly what he's like in person. Bishop Smith was appointed by Pope Francis, and he's met the pontiff on several occasions. He said he is not surprised the Pope chose to have a simple funeral and burial procession. The Pope was known for the line, "A shepherd should have the smell of the sheep," and advised church leaders to get out amongst the people.
He had a sense of humor. He would joke around. He'd get serious at moments. It was just very, very human.
Bishop Smith predicts after more than 10 years with a pope who focused on reaching outward to people on the fringes, cardinals may decide to switch to a pope similar to Pope Benedict, who focused more on the inner workings of the church. In particular, the bishop predicts there's a 50-50 chance the cardinals will pick a leader from Africa.
Africa is the demographic center of the church right now. It's the fastest growing part of the Catholic Church in the world, followed by Asia.
The bishop says he will always treasure his replica cross that matches the simple cross worn by Pope Francis. A larger version featuring a shepherd with a sheep is expected to be displayed over the Pope's burial site. Stay with KGW for continuing coverage of Pope Francis's death and the choosing of the next pontiff. If you missed this morning's live stream, we'll have the full funeral available on demand on our KGW Plus TV app. All right, turning now to our weather here locally. Our stretch of beautiful conditions in the Portland metro continued today. A kind of cloudy start gave way to beautiful blue skies and warm temps. Meteorologist Joe Ranieri is joining us now. Joe, how's Sunday looking for us?
It's going to be kind of a similar setup. The clouds will be a little bit thicker heading into tomorrow. So instead of seeing highs close to 70 like we saw earlier this afternoon, it might be right around the low to mid 60s. But again, we're going to be pretty much dry up and down the I-5 corridor. But we have that upper level low that's coming in from Northern California that's been bringing in some showers, a little bit of some thunderstorm activity throughout the east side of the state. That's going to continue potentially into tomorrow. But right now we just have a little bit of some high clouds out there. Those clouds will increase here the next few hours. So by tomorrow morning, we will be waking up to mostly cloudy skies, and the clouds stick around for a good portion of at least the first half of the day. Next 6 hours look like this. We'll be looking at very mild conditions overnight, dropping down into the mid 40s for your overnight lows. Tomorrow morning, we have a little bit of some sunshine here and there through parts of the valley, but the northern part of the metro area is going to be socked in with mostly cloudy skies throughout the morning and into the afternoon hours as well. We stay mainly dry, but again, with those clouds thick enough, there could be some light sprinkles here and there, and that's going to be kind of the similar setup heading into Monday. Get this, John. We are going to be seeing more dry than wet conditions ahead of the next few days, but starting off May, we could be looking at temperatures feeling more like summer. I'll talk more about specifically what I mean by that in just a few minutes. Obviously, I mean warm, but I'll get more specific on just how warm things will get.
All right, Joe, we'll be looking forward to that. Thank you. We're trying to learn more about a shooting incident in North Portland that left one person hurt. It happened around 6 this evening along North Woolsey Avenue off of Columbia Boulevard. A neighbor told us she heard about 6 consecutive gunshots.
So I went over there, and the people was fighting, arguing back and forth, you know. And then after that, that's the cop car came.
Police say a man was shot in the leg and was taken to the hospital. By the time they got there, the suspect had left the scene. The investigation continues. Investigators continue to look into what caused a deadly pedestrian crash in Tigard. Police were called just after 7 this evening to Southwest Pacific Highway and Southwest Gardy. Police say the pedestrian died at the scene despite life-saving measures. The driver stayed and spoke to investigators. Gardy Street was shut down, but is now back open. Forest Grove firefighters were called to put out a brush fire today that was caused by burning cardboard. It started just before 2 in rural Washington County. Firefighters spent about 2 hours total getting it under control after it grew to about half an acre in size. Forest Grove Fire and Rescue said a homeowner was burning cardboard when it spread to nearby vegetation. The homeowner was fined by the Oregon Department of Forestry. Tax season is over for most people, but there's now concern over what next year could bring. The Associated Press reported the Trump administration plans to end the IRS Direct File program. It's a free online tax filing program run by the government agency, recently launched in states including Oregon and Washington. According to the U.S. Government Accountability Office, about 140,000 people used it. A large portion of users were considered to be in low-income households.
$50 to $100 back in my pocket. That really helps right now to pay for things like rent or groceries. I think any dollar helps.
We're really concerned that direct file just won't be available to anybody for next tax season and beyond.
Opponents of the program called it a threat to taxpayers' freedom from government overreach and that it came at a steep price. The IRS estimates it spent $13 million to run the program in 2024.
Yeah, it was truly a group effort, and I am so blessed to be the benefactor.
This weekend, a nonprofit was busy helping out low-income homeowners rebuild their homes at no cost to them. Rebuilding Together Pacific Northwest has been changing lives for years with no plans to stop. Our Celine Stevens spoke with one recipient of the program today who called this a perfect storm of blessings after nearly losing her home.
Essentially, I was homeless. I couldn't live here. I had no heat and no hot water and no electricity.
This is Pam Jelks standing in her backyard that now has a deck and patio.
It's a work in progress.
This home, located in the Kenton neighborhood of Portland, was built by her father in the late 60s after the family was forced to leave their original home in Albina due to eminent domain.
The city wanted to build I-5, and a lot of the Albina neighborhood was pretty much demolished.
Her father building a brick home so his family would feel safe.
When we first moved to Kenton, according to what I heard, we received a couple of threats, death threats. There were some people who didn't want black people in the neighborhood. And so Dad said, well, I better use brick.
Time took its toll on the home. In just last year, Jelks says everything started to fall apart and the home became uninhabitable, forcing her to start living at a shelter.
I had to leave this house during Thanksgiving, because everything shut down on me, everything. The hot water heater burst, so I had no hot water. I had no heat because the furnace also broke. I had no insulation because the squirrels stole the fiberglass.
She also found out she had kidney failure. But then things began to turn around. Jelks was connected with resources and eventually got in touch with Rebuilding Together Pacific Northwest, a nonprofit that helps low-income homeowners rebuild their homes.
Today we're here helping Pam. We have undertaken a full kitchen remodel. All the electrical on the inside of the kitchen, as well as painting the entire house, rebuilding decks.
It's a national program, but on this Saturday, hundreds of volunteers took on 30 homes to help those in need.
Words cannot describe how appreciative the people are that are receiving our help in rebuilding their houses and helping them rebuild their lives.
Cleaning up their house and their yard and making it like new is so rewarding.
The goal is to fix up an entire home in a day, but sometimes it can take a little extra time, but they'll work until it's done.
I wish my dad and my mom were here to see this, because they never saw this finished product. The construction began in 1968, but the restoration began in 2025.
Celine Stevens, KGW News.